Trials of Mana.
Welcome to a very brief and possibly quite inaccurate video about the Trials of Mana characters and party composition. Just because I felt like splurging about this game. I love this game ridiculously much, and I played the original to absolute bits. Though I must shamefully admit that there was one ending that I've never seen. But yeah, I played the original version on fan-hacked emulators, fan-hacked ROMs, translated, emulated on PC, because you couldn't get this game in Europe, not until last year. So, apologies for emulating a game that I didn't buy, but it was literally the only way to play it. So I don't feel guilty about it. And I love it, and I'm buying this game. I'm buying this game for Switch, and I'm buying it for PC. If I had a PlayStation, I'd buy it for PlayStation as well. But I don't. Though I'd highly recommend that if you're going to buy it just once, like a normal person should, not a crazy, insane madman like me, then I'd suggest buying it for either PC or PlayStation, because the PC and PlayStation versions aren't frame capped at 30. Those run at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second. Though the load times are a little bit longer on PlayStation apparently than Switch, though the load times, they don't seem that different to me. Like, it's 1 or 2 seconds longer. Completely bearable. Anyway, I'll get into the meat of this video. Let's first reduce the sound a bit, particularly the background music. Whilst absolutely charming, the music and the character select, let's just say it's a pretty short loop. You'll get fairly sick of it if I hold on the character select screen a long time, because it's not intended to be listened to for however long this is going to take. So take that coming from me. I'm so excited I can barely speak coherently. But take that from somebody who absolutely loves this game and absolutely adores the music. And the song that plays in the background right now, Meridian Child, it's just... You want Arthur to cry? Just play this song. I will weep tears of joy within seconds. I can barely hold it right now. That's just how much I love this game. Right. Okay. So, difficulty. I'll also briefly talk about that. Don't worry too much about it, because as you can see at the bottom of the screen, difficulty can be changed during the playthrough. It has no bearing on the story, so just do whatever feels best to you. I would highly recommend going on hard difficulty. At least during the demo, I haven't encountered anything that is even remotely challenging. And the game is significantly easier than the original so far. Because whilst enemies, I think, hit harder, the fact that you have a dodge roll and can jump and such allows you to actually dodge a lot of attacks. Not to mention that, for example, the first boss has a bunch of powerful area of effect moves, but in the original they just automatically hit you, and in the remake they're all dodgeable area of effects. It's well telegraphed, you can exactly see what the boss is going to do where, when, and all you have to do is get out of the way. So I'd say, like, just go on hard. And yeah, you can change it anytime, so it really doesn't matter. Though apparently beginner difficulty will just heal you to full if you fall in battle. But let's get to the characters. Alright, very quick. There are 6 characters, and thus 6 intros. And in one playthrough, you can play, if you want, you can play through all 3 of your party's starting chapters. You will just get the option when you meet them, if you want to play through the starting chapter of whatever allied characters you picked, though you don't get any experience or items from playing through their opening. So you can just speedrun through it just for the story bits. And talk to the NPCs that you want to talk to for story bits. And not worry about fighting monsters or collecting items. If you decline, they will still give you a brief synopsis. Regardless, the next thing to then know about the story bit is that whilst there are 6 opening chapters, there are 3 ending chapters. And apparently a new epilogue, but I don't think that's tied to any of the characters. And that's something that I'm going to be very excited for, because that's completely new. Completely new content. Regardless, Kevin and Angela, Duran and Angela. Duran and Angela share an ending, so to speak. The final chapter, not an ending. Every character also has a unique ending, but the final chapter of Angela and Duran's the same. Kevin and Charlotte have the same final chapter, and Hawkeye and Reese have the same final chapter. So to get all final chapters, you'd have to do 3 playthroughs in total of the game. Which, I mean, I'd recommend doing just because the game is amazing. Though I will say that, sadly, the middle portion of the game, which is by far the biggest, shall we say Act 2 of the game, is entirely shared between all characters. So, unless the remake changed that, which there's all sorts of things that they've added and changed in the remake, so who knows. Regardless, I'll get on to the actual party and party composition. Starting with Duran. Duran is your basic sword-wielding protagonist. He hits hard, he's quite sturdy, and when you class up, you can always choose between light and dark. And generally, light side classes are more defensive and support oriented, and dark side classes are more aggressive and offense oriented. Duran's dark side classes, he gains access to saber magic, which allows you to change your physical attacks to elemental damage, which is really damn useful. Whilst if you put him on light side, he gains access to equipable shields. Unless in the remake he can get shields before that, maybe? I mean, they're currently putting it in his bio, high attack power, defense, with shields. I imagine that maybe you can get shields now before class change, like if they put it in there. Regardless of whether that's true or not, at least it used to be light side he got healing and shields, and he could also get access to a few of the saber spells, very specific ones. Regardless, you can't really go wrong with Duran as a party member. He's just either adds to your melee line and is potentially a healer. And yeah, he's solid. Angela, on the other hand, is very much, I'd say, a little bit more of an advanced character in that she will require a lot more active micromanagement. She's pretty flimsy, and she really is there to cast spells. And as a result, she's also the only character that learns offensive magic before classing up, at least in the original. I'm going to stop mentioning that, at least in the original. Just append it to every single thing that I say. But yeah. Can learn spells before changing class. And that's her main purpose. She has the most magic and the most powerful magic. Particularly if you go dark side with her. Literally the 2 most powerful spells in the game. There was the, I was about to say it again. The 2 most powerful spells in the game are on both of her advanced to dark classes. The most powerful single target and the most powerful multi-target spells, respectively. Then we have Kevin. Kevin is another one of the potential healers. If you go light side with him, he can get healing spells. If you go dark side with him, he doesn't actually get any magic, at least not in the initial dark side class. Again, unless they change that. But Kevin can get access to some of the saber spells when he class changes the second time. He can get access to 4 of the more, shall we say, esoteric sabers. Rather than the primary elemental ones, he gets all the secondary elements. Durand can get access to both primary and secondary elements. Primary being, you know, fire, water, earth, air. And the secondaries being light, dark, which really function more like primaries. They just do straight damage, but also wood and moon saber. And wood saber drains MP and replenishes it to the character. And moon saber drains health and replenishes it to the character. And that's one of the things that I really like about Kevin. I like his access particularly to the wood saber, because it allows Antlia to have a use for her physical attacks, because she whacks things and gets MP back. That's wonderful. Though the remake has added additional ways to get MP back. Anyway, Kevin's unique thing is that at night he transforms into a werewolf and hits even harder than he already does. And he already hits pretty damn hard even without it. But he's pretty much the only character that is really affected by daytime, nighttime. Generally, it's just the enemies that are stronger at night than during the day. But Kevin is also stronger at night than during the day, so that balances out nicely. Other times you don't really care about daytime, nighttime, unless you're hunting specific sorts of enemies for specific drops. Which tends to be fairly rare if you're looking for something very specific. Maybe that affects it, and maybe in the remake, though in the remake should be a little bit less grindy with how the item box works. Regardless. Moving on, Charlotte. Charlotte is, like Antlia, one of the few characters that gets access to spells before class changing, and she will always have access to healing magic. Doesn't matter what you class change her into. Even if you go dark classes, she will still have her healing spells that she got from her base class. So, very useful. You can't go wrong with Charlotte. Charlotte also has a unique trait based on where you encounter her character in the story, because you encounter all the characters in different places in the story, even if you did or didn't pick them as your party members. And my tip for Charlotte is, if you are including Charlotte in your party and she's not your protagonist, make her your second companion. Not your first. Always make Charlotte the second companion. And you will have a little bit of an easier time in the first few hours of the game, because you can get access to her faster than any other third character. Now, then we have, let's very briefly on Charlotte. Charlotte has interesting status magic and damaging spells when she goes dark. And light, I believe, gives her just multi-target on her heals and status cleansing spells. Possibly also give her stats. Actually, I don't entirely know what Charlotte does on light side beyond getting multi-target on her support spells. Regardless, yeah, she is a cleric. She's very much a Buffy supporty caster, and as a result, solid addition to any team. Also, she just not completely useless in melee compared to Antlia. She will hit hard enough. Now, then we get Hawkeye, the lightweight amongst the male characters. And actually, particularly if you go dark side with him, becomes a decent DPS caster. And his dark side spells also come packed with debuffs, which is very neat. Whilst his light side spells, I believe, come with status ailments. And do non-elemental damage, which can also be useful if you just want a spell to always work rather than a spell to only work if the enemy isn't that particular element. So, pretty useful all-round character. He's a little bit on the flimsier side because he's got poor defensive stats and hit points, but good damage output both physically and magically. Now, then we have Reese. Reese is very special in that she is the heavyweight of the female characters, being easily the best in melee amongst them, though she won't ever get close to having the physical damage output of Kevin. But nobody gets close to having the physical damage output of Kevin. Regardless, she gets status magic. If you go dark side with her, she gets debuffs, and if you go light side with her, she gets buffs. And after her second class change, or maybe there's new summoning spells on the lower classes now as well, but after her second class change, she gets some of the very powerful summon magic in this game. Which is kind of neat. At least, shall we say, they were the most impressive looking spells in the game. Antlia dealt more raw damage with magic, but that's kind of Antlia's whole thing. Whilst Reese is actually useful in melee. So, what about actual party compositions? Well, my recommendation, though this is entirely optional because you can do perfectly fine without, is get a healer in your party. So either light side Duran, light side Kevin, or any version of Charlotte is a good character to have because it saves you just spamming healing items. And you are limited on how many healing items you can use in battle. Namely, you can only use 9 of any given healing item, well, of any given item in a fight. So 9 candies, 9 chocolates, 9 honey. Yeah, all the healing items in this game are sweets because the game is adorable like that. So yeah. Now then, I would recommend getting as a source of elemental damage either dark side Duran, any version of Antlia, or dark side Hawkeye. Those are all the characters that have easy access to elemental based damage, which is rather neat. Then if you want anything to do with, shall we say, stat manipulation, then you still want to have Hawkeye, dark side, or Reese, either light side for the buffs or dark side for the debuffs. This is also why Reese Hawkeye, naturally, I would recommend not going both of these characters and having both of them go dark side, because they somewhat overlap in that regard. I would pair, for example, dark side Hawkeye with light side Reese. Now, don't worry too much about your party composition. Anything can work, but these are my recommendations. And you don't need a healer because healing items can work just fine. And you can get by without having any source of elemental damage. It's just, you know, I feel that it's more fun to actually try and take advantage of the systems that the game throws at you. And again, a lot of these things might have changed. And with that said, I will show you that my favorite party composition.
Kevin!
It's Kevin.
That's me!
And then once access to advanced classes is there, go light side with Kevin. As your first companion,
I am Reese.
take Reese.
It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
She's much more useful before you get any additional spells than my last character, Antlia.
I'm Angela,
who also
Princess
just
of Altena.
has the most fun introductory scene if you pick her as a third character, if you ask me. But yeah, that was my little Trials of Mana character party composition demo thing. This is the party I'm gonna rock with first. And this time I am going to do all the different parties. Oh, that reminds me. There is a special boss if you pick either Duran or Antlia as your protagonist. An additional optional boss. But, considering that they're remaking this, I imagine that they might either add that boss to be accessible in the Kevin Charlotte and Hawkeye Reese paths, or that they might add additional bosses. So, it's gonna be interesting to see that. Anyway, see you in the next video, whatever that ends up being. Bye bye! Boop!